Once again, my name is Eric. Just for those of you who may be tuning in for the first time or um, wanting to know why I'm doing this, well, first and foremost, I am a Christian. I am a husband, I'm a father, and I'm a pastor. And I help and I pastor alongside my dad at Reborn Church, and we're located on 31st Avenue in Indian School here in Phoenix, Arizona. So if you're interested in church, you should come check us out. I'm going to be live streaming tonight, and then I'll head over to Bible study over at my church right after this. So I just wanted to today. I wanted to talk about something that I really enjoy talking about, and that's involving dating. Is dating biblical? And I maybe some of us have never even thought about this question. Like, is God okay with dating? Is dating something that we should do? So today I wanted to kind of dive into the history of dating, discuss what we should do in regards to dating, and how theology and how God's word actually has something to say about how we ought to live our lives in regards to relationships with people. And so, theology, I love talking theology, and theology impacts every realm of life, and that includes dating. So, today we're talking about the theology behind dating. Is it biblical? First, wanted to ask you just to think: are you single? Is this something that you've thought through? Is this something that God wants you to do? See, God created you. God created you to be in relationship with people, and that doesn't necessitate romantic relationship, but you're created certainly not to be alone. So, in your singleness, are you using it for God's glory? God created you for His glory. And are you using your singleness for His glory? And if you're not single, and if you are in a relationship, if you are dating somebody, I hope this video also can help you. And even if you're married, or if you're an adult and you're parenting kids, I hope that the information provided in this video could serve you well. So if you are single, I wanted to share with you a passage from First Corinthians chapter 7. Now, First Corinthians chapter 7 is the passage that Paul provides to the church in Corinth in regards to principles for marriage. And so in First Corinthians chapter 7, I want to go and share my screen with you. First Corinthians chapter 7, starting in, we'll just look at this one verse in verse 8. It says, "To the unmarried and the widows, I say that it is good for them to remain single as I am." So the whole chapter, First Corinthians chapter 7, it's about marriage. But then in this one passage here, we get this idea from Paul that it is good to remain single as he is. That sometimes people tend to think singleness is a curse, or singleness is a bad thing, when actually the Bible talks about it actually being a gift. Marriage is certainly a gift, and singleness is also a gift. And for those of you who are unmarried and you're like, how is this a gift? Well, I had previously said that you were created for God's glory, and you were created to live your life for Him. And when you are single, you have a lot more freedom and time on your hands to do what God is calling you specifically to do. Now, for married people, we have the time. Of course, God gives us the same amount of time as you do, but we have responsibilities that sometimes can um, hold us back as far as going all in, and giving our lives completely as far as our time goes, to God and His mission. For instance, for those of you who are unmarried and you wanted to go like on a mission trip to go preach the gospel in a different country, you have lots of freedom to do that as a married. But if you're married, you have certain responsibilities. Think about it. You have your wife to talk that over. Hey, do you want to come with me? You have your kids to look for it. Do you have babysitters for them? There's just a lot more of excuse me, there's just a lot more things to consider when you are married. So singleness is absolutely a gift, and marriage is a gift as well. In Ephesians chapter 5, there's a whole passage on the beautiful um, display of marriage, of how it's supposed to display the sacrificial love Jesus has for his people, and that the husband is supposed to love his wife in those sacrificial ways. So marriage absolutely is a gift, and so is singleness. So I don't want people to think, I don't want you to think that singleness is a curse, and that that God wants you to be married. I'm sure we can desire to be married. I believe that those desires are good things to desire to be married. But while you are single, you should use it for God's glory. Don't simply just treat it as a negative thing, but treat it as a positive thing. Get involved with the things of God. So now moving forward, I wanted to talk about dating. Is dating biblical? A book that was released, I want to go and share my screen with you. It's called Labor of Love. It's called Labor of Love. Um, it's written by Maura Weigel. She is an assistant professor at the University of Northeastern. And she wrote a book in regards to the history of dating, the intentions of dating. Now, I'm not recommending you read this book. It's not. It's not from the worldview that I believe in. It's not a Christian worldview. But in it, we find information in regards to how dating kind of came about. Um, the word date, if you see here, it says the word date was coined inadvertently, it seems, by George Ade, a columnist for the Chicago Record in 1896. So the word dating came about in 1896. That is not that long ago. That's a little over 100 years ago. So dating is fairly new to history. Dating is a fairly new concept. But living here in the West, living here in America, we have learned to adapt and actually adopt the concept of dating. Now, dating is here. Dating is kind of here to stay in a lot of ways. So now we actually have to be able to confront it and redeem it. We have to be able to redeem dating and date with intentionality. Um, Dating in that book, Labor of Love, discusses how dating was actually a term that was used. It was it was like a euphemism that was used to talk about people who would elicit prostitution. Now, this can sometimes have been confused back then. It would have been a woman simply sitting at a bar and a man comes up and offers her a drink. And to the public eye, that was different. It would look like prostitution that this person is paying in favor for sexual relationship. So the concept of dating is really is was comes from that idea that it was actually seen as eliciting women for prostitution. And this is back early in the early 1900s, the late 1800s. So that's where this idea really comes from. And although dating isn't about prostitution anymore, there is definitely sinful things that come about in how we go about dating. Question I want to ask you all is why do people date? And maybe you can put it down in the comment section below. Why do people date? Have you ever even considered why you dated? Why do people date? What is the goal for some people? It's literally just about having fun. Dating is fun to them. I remember in growing up, it was kind of popular. And I think maybe kids still say this stuff today about, hey, he has game, and what that implied was that if you had game, you would be you had the you were the person who was able to talk to plenty of many different girls, and you were able to have relationships with different types of girls or just multiple females. And so that was the idea of you got game. So people do it for fun. In the dating that I'm talking about is like a boyfriend and girlfriend relationship, and not just simply going on a one date and getting to know a person. What I'm really talking about is the idea of being in a relationship with someone for an extended period of time, and just having fun. But is that really the goal? Is the goal of dating to have fun? I think dating can be a lot like shopping. In in my time as a youth pastor, my youth pastor days at my church, we I would talk to the youth and I would ask them this simple question: um, "What is the purpose of dating?" And really, they had never been asked this before. They had never considered what the purpose of dating actually is. And so it's funny to like to think about it. And I would ask them, and oftentimes they had a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and they would say, just to just to like because we like each other, so we're boyfriend and girlfriend. I'm like, okay, so dating without the intention or without the goal and the ultimate goal is marriage, and I'll be talking a little bit about that. But dating without a goal, the goal to be married, is like going shopping. Shopping without money. You go shopping without money, you eventually will steal something. You'll take something that's not yours, or you leave with nothing. It was a waste of time. Dating without the intention of being married is like that. Now, some of you may be thinking, "Well, Eric, why do we need to get married? Why do people need to be married?" Um, well, because God created us, and in Genesis chapter 2, he installed marriage and said that it was good. That man and a woman together is a good thing. So if you're going to pursue a relationship with somebody, if you're interested in somebody, the intention should be marriage. That's the intention. That's God's created design. God created you, and if you desire to be married, you shouldn't just date people for fun, and in a lot of ways, it's practicing for divorce. You're going to experience heartbreak. You're going to take things that aren't yours. You're going to be sexually intimate and take things away from people that don't belong to you, that would belong to someone else, that would belong to their spouse. So in a lot of ways, it's a dangerous thing to play with. And dating is also like job interviews, like if we take a step back, you don't want to be in a dating stage for too long. Like you don't want to have to get to know someone else. But dating is in a lot of ways like a job interview. It's not always like happy, and it's not always fun. Like when you meet somebody, and when you're an adult and you meet somebody, it's like, you get dressed up, and then you have to like ask these questions. You have to be interviewed in a sense to see if you're compatible. So even that kind of experience isn't always fun. But the hope is to get you out of the dating stage and into the marriage stage, if of course if you want to be married. But let me ask you this, parents, if you have a kid, do you let your kids date? Do you let your children date? At what age? And you can put it in the comment section below. At what age, for all those who are watching, what age do you think it's okay for your children to date? Okay, for your children to date. As I mentioned previously, when I was a youth pastor, I would ask the youth. I would ask, what's the intention of your dating? Why are you dating? And they many times they had no idea what to say. Uh, because no one had ever taught them before. Parents, I would encourage you all to teach your kids what dating is. If you're going to redeem the concept of dating, or I think it's actually even better to be involved in the process. Marriage is a big decision. It's one of the most important decisions that you'll ever make in your life. And marriage is awesome. It's amazing if it's done right. But parents, you've raised them. You raise your kids your whole life. You feed them, you change their diapers, and then they grow up. And would you really trust them to make this important decision without your guidance in it? I think it's very helpful if you disciple your children on how to go about finding the right person to marry. But the ultimate goal of dating is to be married. What does this mean? This means if you aren't ready to be married, then you shouldn't be dating anybody. That's the truth. If you aren't ready, if dating is to see if you're compatible for marriage, dating is to see if you're compatible for marriage, and you are not ready to date, and you're not ready to, or if you're not ready to be married, then you're not ready to date. If what are some of the requirements of ready to be marriage? ready to be married. How about do you have a job as a man? Do you have a job? Do you do you are you able to provide? Are you preparing in hopes to prepare a home, a place to live in? Um, Even more important, do you believe in Jesus? Like, do you believe in Jesus? Are you committed to a church? Are you under a pastor? Are you under pastoral authority? Those are good steps in finding out if you are even ready to be married. Or do you believe in Jesus? Do you go to church? Are you committed to church? Do people know you who can speak into your life and help guide you in this process? Do you have a job? If you're saying no to any of these situations, you're not ready for marriage. You're not ready for marriage. And if you have any further questions about kind of if there's some nuances into this, feel free to put in the comments if you have a question in regards to maybe me explaining something, because I know that there are nuances to some of these things. So I'd love to help you out with that. But if you're a Christian man and you don't have a job, then you're not ready to be married. If you're a Christian and you're committed to a church and you're serving in a church, and you have a job and you want to be married, go out and get you a spouse. Go out and find someone that is compatible with you. And so those are some important aspects as far as, are you ready to be married? Now, if you're a woman, if if you are a woman, if you're a woman, do you go to church? Are you under pastoral authority? Um, do people know you who can speak into your life and pray for you? These are just some things to consider as far as entering into marriage, being on a solid foundation. Oftentimes, it can be where you have couples um, who are proposed and are getting in, who are engaged, and oftentimes they're kind of a bulletproof thing where they're going to get married regardless, whether someone tells them they're not compatible to be married. So I think these conversations need to happen before you even get to that point, before you've been dating someone for an extended period of time. But I want to say that marriage is a gift and singleness is a gift. And I also want to say that women, God created women, they were not created to be long-term girlfriends. Okay. God didn't create a woman to be a long-term girlfriend. That's not his design. So the hope is that you would get through the dating process quickly, and then you would be married and you commit to a long-lasting relationship, a lifetime relationship with someone. But oftentimes, men treat women as long-term girlfriends. Um, now, if this is you and you are in this situation, I want to provide some encouragement to you, and I don't want you to take this as condemnation. My encouragement is that you were created for God. God created you in His image, and He calls you to a higher standard. He calls you to treat women well, and He calls you to love people well. And if you're going to keep someone, string them along and not marry them, it's better to just cut them off and stop wasting their time. That's the truth. Because God didn't intend for women to be long-term girlfriends. That's He didn't intend for women to be strung around. And quite honestly, it's not exactly respectful. And some of you may be thinking, "Why are you saying that I disrespect women um, because I've been dating this woman for so long?" No, I'm not saying that you're being disrespectful. Maybe in your tone, maybe you're a respectful person. What I am saying, though, is that it's outside of God's design, and it's outside of God's will, and it's sinful in that you weren't created to do that. So, my hope would be for you, if this is you, that you would talk to a pastor, talk to me. I'd love to talk to you about relationships. I love discussing relationships. It's one of my favorite topics. My wife and I, we talk about relationships all the time. We talk about marriage and we talk about the Christian perspective on marriage and Christian perspective on relationship and singleness all the time, the Christian worldview about it. But my hope would be for you is that you would be married and married to the right person, and learn to love as Jesus loves the church. Love as Jesus loves the church. There's plenty of things to talk about in this. Um, I wanna there's a comment that I wanna show here. Um, it says by Roxby, it says, "And I thought it was crazy that TV implied third date, it was when a sexual relationship starts. Now I wonder if sort of flowed out of the way it started." This is interesting, because TV implied a third date is when a sexual relationship starts. Sexual relationship should not start until you are married. It should not start. This is God's design. This is part of the problem of dating, is that when you date too long, you start acting like you're married when you're not married, and then you start participating in in activities that are reserved for married people. This is part of the problem of dating too long, or this is part of the problem of dating when you're too young, when you date in high school, or when your kids start dating in middle school, where they're dating and all of a sudden they start doing things that married people that's only safe for married people to do, or God only designed for married people to do. Um, so no, sexual relationships should not even happen after the third date. But this is interesting because it says TV implied third date is when sexual relationships start. I don't know if you know, but one of the crazy things about media is that the experts on relationships is the media. It's Hollywood. It's all the reality TV shows. Those are the experts on relationships. Um, my wife and I, we enjoy watching reality TV shows, relationships, reality TV shows, and it's crazy how sometimes like we don't ever agree with the perspectives that these people bring on there, but it's far as funny for us to talk about how, my goodness, they don't understand what love is, they don't understand what a relationship is. But even when the hosts discuss and talk about love, they themselves are blind people leading blind people, and that's what Hollywood a lot of ways is, where they think that they know the standard of what love is, or they think they have the standard of how to have a successful relationship, when they're the worst at it, but they speak on it as if they are authoritative. So I wanted to thank you for your comment. No, sexual relationships should remain for the bedroom, for the marriage bedroom, for the marriage bedroom, and sex. There's a lot of power in sex, a lot of power, spiritual involvement when it comes to sex. Sometimes people don't think that. Sometimes people just think about it being a physical transaction, but that's not true. Sex is also spiritual. Sex is also spiritual, and I get that from First Corinthians. But the goal for dating is marriage. So I wanted to share that with you. So how to date? If you don't want to be married, don't date. Like if you have this idea where I don't want to be married person, don't date anybody, because you'll just be taking things from people that don't belong to you. If you're not ready to be married right now, then don't date right now. I had encouraged you, if you're single and you're comfortable in your singleness, serve the Lord, commit yourself to the Lord, invest in the Lord. And I have some good friends that do that, where they're using their singleness to simply serve the Lord, and the Lord will bring someone along for them eventually. If you are single, I would encourage you to date the right people. This means that you have you need to be wise on how you go about finding this person. Now, online dating is a pretty popular thing right now. I'm not against online dating. I know it's popular. I'm not against online dating. What I am against is using it as a hookup site, or a place to meet someone to just simply sleep with them. I'm against that. God is certainly against that. So I'm not against online dating as long as a Christian does it wisely and stewards the app and can redeem the app. But oftentimes people are using like Tinder just to hook up. People use Snapchat just to reveal themselves, or and to reveal themselves to someone and start off a relationship in that way. So I would say you need to date the right people, and you need to ask important questions right off the bat. One, are you a Christian? If this is your first time meeting them, are you a Christian? Just be straight up. Are you Christian? Do you got a job? Okay. Um, what's your view on marriage? Like, do you see marriage in the future? What about kids? Do you want kids? What's your theology? What do you believe about life? What do you believe about church? What do you believe? Where do you go to church? So if you got if you're on a date and someone asks and someone says to you, your first question, are you a Christian? And they're like, me and God are cool. You probably should run. Okay, you probably should just say, well, thanks for your time. You don't need to be afraid. You're not being disrespectful. You don't want to waste your time. But in real and honesty, if you're a Christian, don't ever date a non-Christian. That's just don't do it. You are not called to do that. God does not want you to do that. First Corinthians, it talks about not being unequally yoked. And now this is not necessarily talking about dating, because dating wasn't a thing in the Bible, it didn't exist till the late 1800s, early 1900s. But the idea was about like friendship. Don't necessarily be your closest friends shouldn't be unbelievers, because bad company corrupts good morals. And so who's going to be the closest person in your life? That's going to be your spouse. So don't even think about dating someone who's a non-believer. How can you love Jesus and then love some other god? It's not compatible. If Jesus is the most important person in your life, and you can't share that with the other most important person in your life, then you're not compatible. It's not good. And then if you do, I would question whether you are actually in the faith, whether you do love Jesus, because now you have a God to choose. Is this person my God? Is my boyfriend or girlfriend my God? Or is Jesus my God? My God commands me to marry someone who's of the same faith. Um, and then so there's a decision to make at that point. But these are important questions to ask. I had a friend recently talked to me, and he had shared about going on dates, and he had mentioned about the person asking them questions about marriage and children, and my friend had shared with me about how he was appalled by the questions being asked because it was only the first date. And I was like, man, ton of respect for that woman who is just straight up and straightforward with you, and straight up said like, hey, do you want to be married someday? Do you want kids? Because that's what dating is. That's marriage. Dating is supposed to lead to marriage. It's supposed to see if you're compatible for marriage. Dating shouldn't be too long. If you're an adult, dating shouldn't be too long. And if you have someone who says they don't want to have kids, that's really, really dangerous. Now, I'm not saying that they believe that they can't have kids, but I'm saying if someone says, "I do not want kids," that's really dangerous, and I even believe that that person's not ready to be married, um, because marriage naturally, when you love someone, you naturally, um, participate together and love each other and you have sex together, naturally kids will come about if the Lord blesses you in that way. It's natural. But if you have someone who says, I don't want kids at all, what happens when you get pregnant? Now we're getting into a different topic. Um, but I would say if someone says that they don't want kids, you got to move on. But dating is an important time to talk about everything. Ask all the questions that you got to see if they are compatible for marriage. Um, how do I know if they are the one? Really, what you would need to do is you would need to ask them what they believe about everything. And again, if they meet those basic qualifications, are they Christian? Do they go to church? Do they got a job? Do they want to be married? Do they want kids? Those basic things. Then, if the answer is yes, then take them around your closest friends. Ask your Christian friends who are God's people, to discern if this person's a good fit for you to marry. Um, Marriage shouldn't just be a decision that it's a solo decision by yourself. You need to bring people along who are going to be able to provide counsel to you, insight in your life. It's always a good thing to get advice from God's people, but oftentimes people shy away from getting advice and they want to do things their own way. Would never encourage you to do that. Everybody should have a pastor. Everybody. Everybody needs a pastor. Everyone needs someone who can be able to shepherd them Everybody needs a pastor. Jesus provided under shepherds to counsel God's people. And dating is one of those areas where people need to be counseled and people need to be guided in. We should never date. We should never date just solo without really telling people about it. If we're interested in someone, we should let our friends know, our small group know, even our pastor. Hey, pastor, what do you think about this? I want to let you know that I'm seeing someone, and have him pray over you. These are all things that you should do before dating. If you had value from this video, I would encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to post 2 to 3 live streams a week. If you have any further questions about dating, about relationships, about sex that you want me to cover, or about theology in general, go ahead and put it in the comments section below. I would love to address that in a future video. Thank you for your time today. I'm going to go ahead and head over to Bible study, but I'll see you guys on my next live stream soon.